What's up, everyone? Welcome back to 30 to Life. We got a special guest today. She's served over 27 years on a 19 to life term, and she's here to share with us her experiences with prison life from a poly woman's perspective. So let's get into it, guys. Okay, sis, tell us your name and a little bit where you're from.
Okay, my name is Eleanor, but everybody calls me Ellie, and my last name's Lefiti. And I'm raised in San Francisco.
Nice.
And I moved here to Oakland.
Okay, a Bay Area resident.
Yes.
So can you tell us, what was it like for you growing up out there in the Bay Area in San Francisco as a child?
The Samoan community out here is real strong, but as with most Samoan families, you only tend to stick to your own family members, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I pretty much stuck to my own family members and just stayed to myself, really, and only did things that needed to be done for the family.
Right. So you're basically really family oriented, like most of the poly
Yes.
children. Yeah. Okay. So did your family come out to San Francisco or were you guys always based out there? Were you born out here?
Well, no, I was born in Samoa.
Okay.
You know, from Pangpango, American Samoa. And my parents moved out here and we first lived in LA for like a quick minute, maybe 7 months. And then my aunt who lived up here in San Francisco basically was like, no, come up here. And she came and got us. Okay. So we've been here ever since. And we came out here when I was like maybe 2 years old. So I really don't have too many memories of Samoa except for what I hear and what I saw every now and then, you know.
Okay. So would you say that your family, like most Samoan families, they moved out here basically to give, you know, their children a better life? And was it just, okay.
Yes.
Cool. So that was the intention. So you ended up going to school out in the Bay Area, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you, what do you think, you know, led up to, you know, this trouble in your life, being that you were family oriented and everything, and you came out here for a better start or whatnot with your family? What happened, you know, in your childhood or growing up out there in Frisco to get you to turn to a life of trouble?
Actually, I never really got into trouble like that. My only issues were like when I got into trying to defend my little brother and sisters, that's when the fights would start. And I grew up in Sunnydale, you know, Sunnydale projects. And as much as I tried to not be that angry kid, with a lot of Samoan women, we suppress our angers, you know, because we're taught to do what we have to do and not show any type of emotions in that aspect. You can't be mad about anything. Smile and keep going. And I rebelled a lot in my Samoan relationships, you know. I got involved with like the Black culture, you know, like I strayed to getting involved in relationships with Black guys. And that, of course, that was an issue at home because we're taught to stick to our own, you know. And in that rebelliousness, I started getting into sneaking out, going to do what I wanted to do, you know, and coming home, there was always a fight. I was always getting beat up.
Mm-hmm.
Moms and, you know, dad, he wasn't a disciplinarian. He was more like the quiet guy, but he drank a lot, you know. Alcoholism ran in our family real tough, and I would always end up having to be the one to take care of him and making sure he was okay. So he kind of babied me, you know. And considering I was the oldest girl, I did my role in taking care of the household, my brother and sister, because my mom had her own little issues that she was trying to deal with, you know, mental issues. But when she didn't spare the rod with us at all.
Right.
It was handy, came my way. So I took the beatings because I thought that was natural, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and in Samoan culture, when you get hit, you don't say nothing. Because if you do say something, it's like you're disrespectful.
You can get whacked again. Yep.
And
Yep.
so I suppressed a lot of my anger towards that issue, you know? So when I left the house, I was getting into trouble outside of the house because that's where I showed my anger at.
Yeah.
And in doing that, I got involved in relationships that involved a lot of domestic issues, you know? Mm-hmm. Because I couldn't be rebellious at home, so I was rebellious there. I couldn't be rebellious with my dad and my brothers or my cousins, the male cousins, so I was rebellious in my relationships, you know? Because one, I don't have to take it from you.
Yeah.
So that in saying that, I got involved with a man that basically, wasn't ready to be in a relationship. So as it all goes, he was cheating and doing his thing. And I thought that was natural because I saw it within my own family, you know?
Right.
So in the Samoan culture, it's basically like, fix it. You don't let anybody know your problems, fix it, you know? And I started feeling like some issues were because of me, you know, it was my fault. So I had to deal with it, accept it, whatever comes my way, fix it. So when it came down to it, he got arrested for domestic violence. And it's crazy because the San Francisco Police Department OR'd him within hours. Within hours of a domestic case. But before that, not even jump into that, 3 young women came to my home and, you know, they were calling for him and a few of the other people that were living there. And it came down to it that I went out and got into an argument with the women. So when that happened, I ran back into the house, grabbed the gun, came out, and I fired the gun. And then I went back into my apartment, not thinking of anybody being hurt, because truthfully, at that moment in time, I didn't care. It was just to meet my needs and get whatever feeling I had out the way.
Right. You know, it's crazy. You know, it always seems to be the same recipe, the same story with our poly brothers and sisters. You know, it starts within the home. You know, and I mean, I know our parents, they did the best they can to raise us and stuff, but I don't think they were ready for this culture over here.
No.
Yeah. And, you know, they were just winging it. So, but it caused a lot of the children to, like you said, suppress a lot of the feelings, a lot of the anger, because the way our culture is. And just like you, I went out in the streets and pretty much did the same thing. I shot at people. I beat people up. You know, I took my anger out on the streets. My violence got worse out there because I couldn't express it at home. So I know where you're coming from. And that's one thing that, you know, I don't want to get too off topic, but, you know, this is important for us to realize is that, you know, communication is key within our families and with the children that you're raising, because, you know, when you're suppressing these feelings, this is what happens, you know? So you went out and you did what you did. And then what happened after that? What came next after that?
Well, the police knocked on my door, you know, because I lived in top of the hill, Daly City at that time. And truthfully, when I fired the gun and I went upstairs, I didn't care, you know, at that moment in time, I didn't care about anything else, you know. And when the police knocked on my door, I was there. I opened the door for them. And I think at that moment in time, I was just ready to get away, you know. And so when I got arrested, they asked me, did I fire the gun? And I was just like, yes, you know. So I went down to the police station, did the interview and everything else. And at that moment in time, I got booked in, you know, and truthfully, I thought I was going in for firing a weapon, possession of a weapon. But no, that's when they told me that I was going in for murder.
Wow.
And so it was like everything just went into shock. I went into shock and got numb, everything, you know, and just on the ride there, I just basically was just like quiet. And I was just at that moment in time, I was like, okay, whatever happens, happens, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm that type of person, like I'll go head on into something and face whatever I have to face.
That's how we are, man. That's our people. That's our people. Yeah. So, man, that's crazy. So you didn't know anything that happened. How old were you at this
I
time?
was 23 years old.
23?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it happened in 1993.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Wow.
when I got to the county jail, they booked me in and everything, and I was still like a zombie, just walking through the whole, you know, the whole process of it all, and it was just crazy.
I know. I mean, being 23 and you never been in trouble before, you've never been to jail or anything.
I had never been in trouble before like that, but when we lived in Oregon for a quick
Mm-hmm.
minute, I got into a fight up there behind my little sister. So I ended up having to do community time
Mm-hmm.
and going to groups for anger management,
Yeah.
because when I got into that fight, I had rammed the girl's head into a van.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to pay for medical bills, and I was like 17 years old at that time. And that was it right there.
Right. Right. Oh man, that's crazy. So this is a trip because you're not your typical, like person who's out there getting involved in gangs or getting involved in criminal activity. You're staying at home, you're just involved in a relationship that really wasn't good. And,
Mm-hmm.
so I hope you don't mind. Was he really abusive to you for a long time? Your ex?
You know what? He wasn't really abusive like that. It's just that I think for me, it was just like I had had enough with disrespect of any tone. You know, like if you talk to me crazy, that's disrespectful. If you look at me crazy, that's disrespectful. And it just he was 6'8", you know?
Mm-hmm.
He was 6'8", for about 400 pounds at that time. And it's like, I always had an issue with getting my point across.
Mm-hmm.
I never had a voice at home, so I'm going to have a voice in my relationship. You know, I don't care what you say. I don't care how big you are. You're going to hear me. And that was where everything started going. And when he even looked like he wanted to swing, I was on him, you know? So it was like, it was just back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you said too, growing up, being around your family, just being around people, the community, you've seen a lot of this, that type of abuse or people not being faithful to their women, things like that. And, it took a toll on you. You're very young at that time, and, you're in a relationship that really wasn't a good relationship at the time. I'm not making excuses for you, but I'm understanding. What I'm understanding now is that what we go through and we're not communicating right, we're taking actions that just ain't the right decisions to make at the time, and
Yeah.
I think that's a huge problem. And I think we really need to understand that with each other, including in relationships, that communication is key. Yeah. And if you're involved in anything that's abusive, it's time to walk away, before it
Yeah.
gets worse.
I mean, and what I've learned is never let your ego get in the way. Ego and pride are the worst things to ever walk with.
True story. Especially with us, with polys, we really into the pride.
Because we already have that image of like being strong people, we're dominated, we're warriors.
Yeah.
So it's like the image that society has of us.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever you see something and you feel emotional about it, keep it to yourself. Suck it up.
So true. So true. Okay. So, on this channel, I've spoken to a lot of men and their experiences with men's prisons, things like that, politics, violence, and things like that. How about you know, with the women's prison, do you guys function the same way? Is there politics? Is there things like that going on in there?
Truthfully, women try to politic, but it gets so convoluted in like the things that go on, you know? And it's funny because when I first went in there, I thought it was hard like that because I have a lot of cousins that are in the men's prison, you know? So I always hear, oh yeah, we stick to our own, we stay to our own, we don't get involved. And, you know, if you disrespect the culture, you have to fight that whole culture, you know? That's what we've been hearing, you know, and it's not just a fight here and there. You don't just sock somebody up and then go away, literally fight to the death. That's what I've always heard.
Yes.
So when I went into the women's prison, I had the mentality like, if somebody hits me, I'm going to try and kill them, you know, but that's what I've been hearing from the men's prison. When I got to the women's prison, I was so far off topic. Thought process was totally like, what the heck? No, the women have no politics like that at all. They have none that go down like that. All the races interact with each other, you know? And when I first got to prison, the main thing that gets women to fighting really hard is if you mess with their woman or you're messing with their drugs. That's, to be honest.
Right. So it probably can get really messy up in there then.
Oh, it gets really messy and ugly. Like everybody knows about everybody's business.
Right.
You know, and with females, and I'd hate to say this about my gender, but when we don't get our way, we can get very, very messy.
Yeah, I heard the women's prisons are pretty violent, you know, compared to men's.
Yeah. But when you talk about violence in that aspect, it's more like not hardcore fighting like that.
Right. But lots of fights.
Oh my gosh, because it's a lot of mouth. It's a lot of mouth. When you can never get into an argument with a woman and think it's over, because the next day, now her friends are getting involved. Because she done sent it out to everywhere else, you know? And to be honest, that's when the cultures tend to stick together. Right. You know, but within maybe a month after that, everything's back to normal. Now they're friends again.
So let me take you back to when you got your case. So how long was your court? Did you go to trial or did you take a deal?
No, I took a plea deal. Took a plea deal because my ignorance to the system, when my lawyer basically said that they can drop it down from from first degree to second degree, and that's the best deal I'm going to get. Because if I take it to trial, I'm going to get first degree and I'm never going to get out. Right. I'll die in prison. So I was like, okay, maybe second degree life is better than first degree life. Not even realizing the L tag is life.
Yes.
So I pled out on a 15 plus 4 for the gun enhancement. You know, that's what made it 19, second degree. So I got sentenced to second degree murder and I went into prison. And the crazy thing is, the first lifer I met, she had been incarcerated 30 something years.
Wow.
So for me going in at 24, because I was 24 at the time I was sent to prison, I meet this lifer and what she tells me is like, she was like, oh, you're a pretty little thing. And I was like, okay, thank you. You know, and she was just like, how much time are you serving? And I said, 15 a life plus 4. I kept saying a plus 4 like it was something different. Yeah. She was like, oh, you're a lifer. And I was like, yeah. She goes, baby, you're going to die here. So live your best life. And that was the first time a lifer had ever talked to me. And then to tell me you've been here 30 years. I just saw my whole vision was just stuck here.
Man.
I stopped. That's when I zoned out to the outside world.
Right.
You know, because I was looking at her and I was just like, you've been here 30 years. And she was so nonchalant about it.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so it was, that's when I made my choice. Like, okay,
I'm here.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is where.
I know that feeling. Yeah. Going to prison, I know that feeling, being around the other Usos in there and them having life sentences. They always say it. That'll hold you.
Yeah.
You know, because all of them, they were doing at least almost 30 years in there too. Same thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's crazy because you were no career criminal. I can't believe they just threw a life sentence at you like that when some people, they don't get those type of sentences. Man, did they say, like, were they trying to paint you out to be some bad criminal or?
You know what it was? It's just that when my boyfriend got up there and made his little comment about how he was scared of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with him being 6'8" and, you know, like, oh my gosh, how can this big guy be so scared of her? Like, she really must be. And then just the whole topic of, oh, she's Samoan,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything, you know? And it's crazy because it made me really realize the image that society has of our people.
Yeah.
You know? And even when I went into prison, it was the same thing. Like they have an image of us there too, you know? And it's like, I sat back for a long time in prison just to watch everything and see everything. Cause like you said, I'm not a career criminal. So I tried to always do what was safe for me, but smart, you know?
Yeah.
I watched everything that went on in there and I just saw ways to get my needs met, but do it safely, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that was so far off the concept because you could never do anything safely in prison. Never.
Most definitely. Yeah. So tell us, how did that feel when you arrived at prison for your very first time and you seeing the gates, you know, you pulling it? Did you pull up in a bus?
Yes.
Okay. So what was that feeling like, hitting R&R and just realizing now I'm here in prison? I've never been to places like this before. So what was that like?
Lie when I looked out because I got transported by myself
Mm-hmm.
in a little minivan from, you know, San Mateo County.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked around, I saw that there was nothing but dirt and dust around me with trees. And I was thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to die out here.
Mm.
That was a feeling I had in my gut and my mind, you know? And so it was just like, what I'm not saying is that I had found out in county that I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I had just had my son before they shipped me out to prison.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was like all those emotions of being separated from my baby, you know, so everything was, that was what hit me the hardest, was that guilt of not being with him, you know, because I had two sons and my oldest son was 1 year old when I caught my case. And so I just lost this baby right here. And so when it came time to like see everything around me when I landed in prison, I just realized I'm not ever coming home. You know, I had that fear because I didn't know what the police were going to do to me all the way. You know, I'm
Right.
out here, nothing. When I saw the gates and then hearing the gates slam behind me, my whole world just, I just tuned everything off because I'm not ever going to see the free world again. That's exactly what I thought. I'm never going to see freedom again, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I always compared having a life sentence to being a dead man walking. So, you know, it's like you're dead in there, you know, you just stuck in limbo. Yeah. I know the feeling. Man. And you pulled how long in there?
27.
27 years. 27 years. And wow, man. And you said you had 2 kids before you went upstate.
Yes.
So, what happens with the kids when you go?
You know what? It's crazy because as crazy as my family was at that moment in time, like with all Samoan families, they stepped up.
Mm-hmm.
They stepped up. They took, they took my oldest son, and my youngest son, his dad came and got him and took him all the way to Texas. So to this day, I've never gotten to like really hold him. Mm. We've been in communication through phone and stuff like that, but I've never gotten to physically hold him, Yeah. But with my oldest, like he's with me. He's been there, and he's cool. He's cool.
Yeah. Well, I pray that you get to hold the youngest again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. And it's the hard part about this. See, this is what y'all that are listening out there need to understand, especially when you have children. You go to prison, you think you're just doing it to yourself. You think that, the consequences is all on you and everything, man. But your children are suffering, They got to go through this along with you, being away from you. Yeah. And, I left my daughter when she was 2, and she had to grow up without me, go to her first day of school and everything. And those are the things that you think about when you're locked up, when you're seeing these pictures, these baby pictures, and then watching them grow up, and then they're, these drawings and things like that. You're missing out on all that. And I think a lot of people don't think about that when, of course not. We just do what we do, in the heat of the moment, and especially with anger issues. Yeah. Anger will just destroy your whole world. I know a lot about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you get into prison and you're there and you got this long, huge sentence. Now, what did you do to occupy your time this whole time you were in there? Did you get in a lot of trouble, or did you, get some trades? How was that?
You know what? I got into a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. I spent a lot of time in ATSEG and MAC, and ended up doing a few shoe terms. And basically with me, like I had a lot of anger issues, but like I said in the beginning, I suppressed a lot. So it's like when something happens, I would smile, shake my head, and just try to let it go. But then I got involved with drugs, Like I said, I watched a lot. And I got involved with selling drugs. And I was good at it. I realized I was good at it, but I wasn't good enough because I got caught, but it made me realize that whoever had the sack in there had the power. And, and at that moment in time, before I got involved in that aspect of it, one of the big Usos in there was shot calling. And she was getting ready to leave, and she pulled me off to the side, and she was just basically like, you got to be here. She said, and I see how you are with our little Usos. Because I always try to tell them, like, man, do your time and go home. Don't get in no trouble, She said, I see how you are with our little Usos. And I'm like telling her, like, what am I supposed to do? I could only tell them. She says, make sure their needs get taken care of. So that responsibility fell on me to take the sack, make sure that everybody's okay. And to be honest, I like that responsibility because it gave me the sense of home I needed.
Family. Yeah.
I needed that because it made time easy for me. you know?
Was there a lot of you in there? A lot of Samoan girls in there?
You know what? Was a nice size of us.
Mm.
Maybe at one point in time, I could say we probably had like maybe 28, 29.
Wow.
Yeah. A
On one
few,
yard?
no, they always try to separate us.
You too,
They always
okay.
try to keep us apart
Yeah.
because honestly, the Usos and the natives were the tightest bunch. You know, the natives had their own close knit and we had our own close knit. So whenever a situation happened, like they would always keep the Usos separated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I realized why, because the first time I got into an altercation there, I didn't even know that there were Usos on the yard, you know? I was just fresh off of a yard. But when I got into altercation, before I even realized it, I had like 7 of them at my door, like, what's up? I'm like, what you mean, what's up?
Yeah.
They're like, you know, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I got this. I got this. They're like,
Yeah. That's why I love our people. You know what I mean? It's funny too, because I have this story I tell everybody all the time. One of my Usos, he was on the other section, and one of the Usos told him, "Hey, you see that guy over there on the phone?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Man, I don't like that fool. Why the Uso go over there and beat his ass up?" Just because the other Us didn't like him. That's how it goes, though. We family, you know what I mean? Got a problem with one of us, you got a problem with all of us. That's just how it goes. And I'm glad you got to have, it sucks seeing our peoples in there, but it was good that you had them because, like you said, it gave you that sense of family and it made time a little bit more easier. The way we function, it's
yeah.
different. So you got in a lot of trouble. When did you start seeing, like, maybe I do have a chance to go home,
You know what? It was when one of our Usos, because I mind you, I got kicked out of the first prison. In 1998, they shipped me out of there and then sent me to Valley State Prison when it was women's at that time. So we had a Uso there. She was half Tokelauan and half Samoan. And her name was Caroline, and she was always our good girl. You know how we always have that one we keep safe, protect.
Yeah. The kid.
Caroline, she was not, you know how you think I didn't do any crimes? I knew off the top when I saw Caroline, she's not here. And she was there for drunk driving, Mm. So that was it. And she came with life. But for some reason, I didn't see her there. She was not meant to be there. Mm. So at that moment in time, I had made it my duty to make sure Caroline did not get into any trouble. So she stayed on that road of like, I always instilled in her, if I can't get out, you're going to get out. If I have to push you over that gate, you're going to go. And she was just like, okay. So any little trouble I would hear about, and they would tell me, even the officers would tell me like what's going on, And so when I saw Caroline go home, that's when I realized, oh shoot, I can go home. She went home on her first initial. Mm. They gave her that date, and that had never happened before with us females. So it's like when that happened for her, she was just like, why can't you see it for me and you can't see it for yourself?
Right.
In my image, I was like, don't talk to me like that. But alone, it was like, damn, she's right.
Yeah, I'm tripping.
Yeah. I am way out with this one. But I still had to lay my ego down because now I have an image to uphold,
Right.
Now, I mean, when something happens with our Usos, I'm the one that people go to see, look, I need that. Can I, And I'm like, well, like it felt good to be able to be like a mother figure
Mm-hmm.
to our Usos, to the females in there, you know?
Right.
But it was like I needed to focus on me when I started getting my mind together.
So what year was this when you were like, you know what, I'm going to start focusing, getting my shit together?
You know what? It wasn't until I got shipped to CIW,
Mm-hmm.
California Institute for Women, because in 2012, VSP closed and they shipped me to CIW because the other prison wouldn't allow me back. You know, the warden said, hell no. She told me to my face. So I went to CIW, and when I got to CIW, it was crazy. CIW is California Institute for Women in Frontera. Oh. So when I got down there, I saw trees. Literally in the prison, I saw trees. I just saw people, you know, interacting with each other. Like the officers were walking with the inmates, just talking, chopping up, laughing. I was like, what the? And then the campus didn't look like a prison area. It looked like a college area. Because they live in like houses.
Like dorms, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so it's like when I got there, and I don't, maybe it might be just our natural instinct to touch with nature. I hugged a tree.
Yeah.
I hugged a tree because I hadn't touched a tree in so long. And it was funny because the lieutenant came out, was like, get off of that tree, you know? And I'm like, oh my God. She was like, girl, you act like you ain't touched it, you know, ain't seen a tree. I said, I haven't. Mm-hmm. And then she just looked at me. She was just like, well, hurry up and get off the tree, you know? And I was just like, dang. And then as we walked along even more, I just seen kindness. Man. I seen kindness. People weren't like talking crazy. They were all like, hey, welcome to CIW. And I was like, what the fudge? Yeah. Welcome to CIW.
So I guess it's probably considered a lower level custody, maybe?
Well, the females don't have levels like that. Oh. Like, dude, like we're all mixed up.
So yeah, lifers are there, short timers, everything.
You have LWAPs there.
Wow.
You have LWAPs. Everybody's mixed up. Yeah. So when I landed at CIW, that's when I started seeing around. And my first night there, I sat out and I looked because I lived in this area called Wilson. Mm-hmm. And I looked down the way and I seen all these red lights going by, you know? And I was asking one of the girls, I was like, what the hell is that over there? She was like, girl, you are tripping. That's the freeway.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? She said, that's the freeway. I said, you mean right there, that road right there? She was like, yeah. And I just sat there and cried, Ron, because at that moment in time, one of those cars was going to come get me. That's when I was in. Home freedom was so close.
That's a trip. You know, it's a trip because when you're locked up in a place for so long and all you know is prison and what you're doing in your everyday, you know, routine. Mm-hmm. I remember in High Desert State Prison when the cops walked out onto the yard with a canine, and one of the homies looked at me and said, I ain't seen a dog in hella long. I ain't even heard a dog bark. And that canine didn't bark. So, you know, we were all hoping it would bark so the homie could hear it bark. Mm-hmm. For real. So I know what you're saying. And just when you get to these places and you get that little freedom, then you realize like, fuck, I want to be home. You know, I want to be out there. And you seeing those taillights of those cars, man, I can imagine what you were going through.
Yeah, a lot of emotions.
A lot of emotions. And so you decided to have a different outlook on your life and try to make your way home. So yes. How long did it take after you saw those headlights before you made it to your parole and heard some good news?
I arrived there in 2013. No, 2012. I arrived there maybe 2 years after landing at CIW, which was to the 14th, about 7 years later.
Wow.
7 years later, because at that moment in time, I started realizing like all my Usos are gone.
Wow.
And then one of my blood cousins arrived there, you know, and she came there with 7 years, and she was looking at life. And when she arrived there, it was like I seen her, and it's crazy because I've been around our sisters, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I call them my Usos, but with her, because she's blood, she's somebody that's family, you know, connected to me. The feeling was different. You know, the feeling was just like, oh, hell no. I got to get out of here because she's going with me, you know? Like I started doing everything in my power to make sure she and I were home together, or she went before me because I was right after her. My mind was already instilled to home, especially because CIW, their perimeters, it's around traffic. Like you see cars going by, and that was a whole different experience for me, is going out jogging. Trucks are going by and they're honking their horns, waving. It's like, what the? These people are kind, you know? Like they see that we're not just here. They see us. They recognize who we are for people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, and then I started getting into groups. I started like really, really being open with my issues, you know? And it's crazy, like you said in the very beginning, our issues are rooted from home. From home, because there was a lot of things that happened that my mom, like I would go to my mom too for guidance. And it's like the Samoan, at that moment in time, she didn't know how to deal with stuff like that, you know? So it was just like, shut up, I don't want to hear it. Or I would get beat up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And if it's anything against, you know, somebody, it's totally closed off. She was never the confrontational type with other people. And she's, like I said, she had her own mental issues to deal with, you know? Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay, at that moment in time, you don't have anybody to go to. So you just try to figure it out all on your own.
Exactly. Yep.
You get it messed up along the way, but
we make a lot of mistakes trying to figure it out, don't we?
Right.
Yeah, and then that's why I like hearing your story, because it comes from a different. I mean, it's all the same, because most of the guys that I interview, they don't really like to talk about things, you know, that deep. But you know, seeing men and women from the Polynesian culture starting to open up these days and really speak on anger issues, family issues, things like that. I mean, I'm sure you felt the same way when you started doing it. It felt free. Huh? You felt free, even
liberating.
in prison.
Yes.
Even in prison. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I know the feeling.
Crazy, because when you start freeing yourself of those issues, mm-hmm. those deeply rooted issues that you hide for so many years, you really start freeing yourself of everything else around you.
Yep.
Like I didn't see the gates as gates anymore. I didn't see the bars around me as bars anymore, you know? I saw it as just like, okay, you know, now it's like, damn, those are keeping me locked in. No, now it's like one day those are going to open up for me. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's different. And like you said, the environment in itself, the prison environment in itself, when I went to CIW and I saw the whole change in it, that's when everything started like clicking for me, you know? Mm-hmm. And then joining the groups, I actually ended up becoming a facilitator for the groups.
That's right.
You know, but it took lieutenants, captains, wardens to keep drilling into me like, you're so good. Like, you know, even meant to be here, you know?
Yep.
And it's like, man, you know my life, leave me alone. But it took them to see what's in me that I couldn't see for myself, you know?
Wow. Yeah, I do know. And like you said, that freedom, it's liberating, you know, just to really let it all go finally. I think a lot of our Polynesian people need to really hear this, because a lot of us suffer from the same thing, you know, and when we go out there in these streets, you know, like you said, we're making mistakes. We're trying to find our way. And some of us don't even make it to prison. You know,
Yeah.
some of us, you know, end up 6 feet deep. So if you guys are listening, women, men, all of you, hear her story, because her not being able to express all this took a huge chunk of her life, her young life, and it did it to a lot of us. So I hope you all listening out there. So tell us what it was like when you finally went to board and they found you suitable.
Man, I can actually say that at that moment in time, I felt blessed. Like the gates of heaven have literally opened up and I'm free. You know, even, and then I had found out, because previously I always knew that once we get our date from board, we have to wait for the governor, you know? But at that moment in time, I had already told myself, like, the board had found me suitable. So even if the governor takes it from me this time, I'm still free. I know I got this, you know, because they gave it to me one time and they can give it to me again. And that was my mentality at that time. But I can honestly say that I was even more blessed because my victim's family showed up. And it was her mom, her daughter, her sister, and her cousin. And in the beginning, I first thought that, like, oh my God, they're going to keep me locked up here, you know, because they're going to hear their side. And it's like the victims, in my mind, the victims always get their side, you know? Mm-hmm. And I felt their pain. I felt their pain. And if I was not given that time then, I would still honor whatever decision came because I felt their pain. But I can say that God was on my side and God was in their hearts because they asked for my release. Mm. They forgave me. And for, you know, anybody that's ever taken a life, that is the biggest relief of them all, is for the family to forgive you. Mm-hmm. Because our families off the top, you know, they'll accept us no matter what. They'll accept us back no matter what. But our victim's family, you know, and I always honor her because I don't like to label her as a victim because she was a person. Tracy. Yes. You know, Tracy's family, they honored me with that forgiveness. And at that moment, that was just like life-giving for me. They gave me back my air, you know? Mm-hmm. Everything I worked so hard for, it worked. It came to fruition. They made me realize that I'm worthy of coming home now. It's time. All the groups that I've been involved in, it all paid off. Working with my anger, dealing with my issues, you know, and that's why, I mean, with our peoples out there, especially the females, if it's not meant for you, don't be in it. Right. Plain simple. Don't try to fix it, especially if you know at that moment in time it's not good for you. That whole thing about the old Samoan ways about the woman has to make sure this is okay, that is okay. I'm telling all females, it's not up to you to make somebody else okay. Mm-hmm. Make yourself okay. 100. If you're not okay with it, don't be there. Don't get involved in it. Lead it. Let it go. It doesn't make you any less of a woman if you look out for yourself. True story. Yes. You know? Yes. And that's the thing with our culture. Like, we put up this whole image like we have to take care of everything and everybody. But we don't.
Mm-mm.
We really don't.
Take care of yourself first. Because if you don't, things like this happens.
Yeah.
Yep. You're no good to nobody else if you ain't taking care of yourself.
No good. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay. So after 27 years,
Yeah. Yes.
after 27 years, the victim's family comes in, they give you their forgiveness, the board gives you a date, and now you wait for your date. So tell us what it's like the day you actually walk out those gates after 27
Woo.
years.
The day that I walked out those gates, my son met me. My cousin Leslie and my cousin Dina drove down there to get me. And it's crazy because I had 3 COs waiting to see me walk out those gates. You know, and it's even crazier because one of them had referred to me that day. You know, he said, "You were always my little sister, right?" And I'm looking at him. I said, "Dude, you're a cop. Leave me alone." He said, "Shut up." I said, I appreciate that. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So when I walked out, I seen my son, and he just like kept standing and staring at me like it was so surreal for him. And then I yelled over at him like, "Come here." And when he came, we just hugged, and 27 years old, and he broke down like he was a baby. And we just hugged, and it was good. It was good. Yeah. But as soon as we got in the car, I told my cousins, "Get out of here before they come and get me."
I know that feeling, you know. When I got out, I kept thinking they're going to come and get me.
Yeah.
They made a mistake. This is a mistake. They're coming.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, that's crazy. How much it beats us up mentally, and including our families, like your son. You know what I mean? Like just seeing you, it was like, what the heck? You know, you're here, you're out here.
Yes.
And yeah. So what did you guys do for your first day? Did you go get something to eat?
You know what? I couldn't eat. It was just I was so excited about everything. I just wanted to enjoy the drive from LA back up to the Bay. And it was just like seeing the roads.
Yeah.
But then I started like tripping. I was like, these people drive crazy out here.
Exactly. Never went that fast for a long time.
Right. I was like, what are they doing? You know, but it was good. It was a good feeling just to, you know, I was like the little, you know how the dogs stick their head out the window just to let the air hit? That was me. It felt good. It felt good.
So how long have you been out now?
I've been out. I paroled May 4th, 2020.
2020.
Yes.
Okay.
I paroled then. And so I've been out a year and a few months now.
Still new to this.
Still new, but you know, life is good.
Yeah.
Life is good.
I actually Googled you and saw that you're in a program. And
out now, homecoming.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. I never heard of that before, but I see that they helped you out a lot and you're really appreciative of that program.
Yes, the homecoming project. What they do is they find a sponsor for you, and that sponsor allows you into their home. But for me, I was blessed because Minister Candy, she's very prominent here in Oakland area, and Sam Johnson, they all got me involved. They interviewed me for the home I was going to go into. And I tell you, I would tell everybody to get involved in this program, Homecoming Project, because it was a 3-bedroom home, and it was just myself and two other people that paroled from prison that were living there. We had this house to ourselves. We had our own house keys. We had our own room keys.
Wow.
And they furnished everything. And, you know, we even had a washer and dryer, and that was plush to me. because everybody that knows me from the inside, I am clean clothes must. It's a must. Mm-hmm. But that it was a wonderful program.
So it's a church program? Is it like to every inmate out there, or just a?
Well, Homecoming Project, it's a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
And you can write them, or have your family get a application from them. You fill it out through them, and then they try to look for you sponsors within the community. They already have a group of people that are waiting, to help anybody re-enter. But I came out here, and now that I'm out of the program, I'm living in my own apartment, and it's like, life is good.
That's good. That's really good. What do you do now? For work or anything like that?
I'm a supervisor for 5 Keys. Nice. And it's a nonprofit organization, but they're really involved with schools. Mm-hmm. They're a school education program, but because of COVID, they got involved in the housing program, and they house a lot of homeless people. They have hotels and sites in the San Francisco area, and they have one here in Oakland, Oak Days. And I'm a supervisor for them. So I just make sure I oversee ambassadors who make sure that the guests get their needs met. And the guests is what we call homeless people.
I think that's really, really cool of you. You not only that you came home and you're getting your life back together, but you're helping others to get their lives together. Yeah. And that's great. I love it. So you have any future plans for yourself? I mean, are you going to get to see maybe your youngest or anything like that?
We're going to set that date. That's a must. But for right now, I'm trying to get a transition program running, Oh. Yeah. So because I came out here and I saw the need for women.
Yeah.
They have a lot of programs for men. And then, just trying to make sure that when the females come out here, because even though I went to a wonderful program, there were still some issues that I had, like trying to get my ID, trying to get things going, Right. So it's like, now I'm trying to make sure that whoever comes before me, or comes after me, I should say, I'm sorry, will have the steps that they need, but it'll be done faster, Yeah. So I'm just trying to make little connections within the community so that when I do get my transition program going, mm-hmm. it can be a little, smoother, pave the road.
Nice. I like it. You're going to try to stay home based out there in the Bay Area?
Yes.
Okay.
But we're also going to try and get something going in like down south, because the women's prison down there, Right. Yeah, I named it Never Forgotten.
Love it. Yeah. So, for the men, right, for us that get out of prison, we deal with, issues still, like PTSD and things like that. And I'm curious for you, being that you served a lot of time, do you deal with anything like that, like PTSD or anything like that?
Heck yeah. Heck yeah, no lie. Like I have my little issues with, like, I still get angry, mm-hmm. I'd be lying if I say I don't. Mm-hmm. But what I'm learning now is that I know when my triggers are kicking in. Right. I know what to do when those moments come. What I'm dealing with is long lines, and just rude people. Yeah. Rude people. I've had my issues with that, Yeah. But like, now it registers in my mind, I can't control nobody but me.
There it is there. Yep.
When that moment kicks in to where I'm having those thoughts like, what the? Man, Ellie, calm down. You can't control her. You can't control.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's so like, different, huh? Out here, people's mentality, you know, in there you get disrespect, you handle your business. Out here, it's like nothing happens to those people.
Oh
So
yeah. It's funny because a while back I got into it like a little dispute with the lady because I was trying to make sure she didn't cut an older lady, you know, in the store. And I was telling her, like, you know, you're cutting her, right? She was in front of you. And then she started, and I was just like, listen, I'm just letting you know, don't cut her. You can cut me, but don't cut her. And the lady looked like she was about 70 something years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the girl started talking, and she said, and if you hit me, I'm calling the police.
Yep.
But you're the one running your mouth.
Yep. It's different.
I'm not trying to hit you.
Yeah. So you got to be careful because that's what people will do. They'll try to get you locked up or, you know, or worse.
Yeah, that's crazy because it seems like the most entitled people out here are the ones that are quick to call the police and change the whole story around.
Yes. So,
it's funny. Me and my husband, we laugh about stuff like that, you know, and it's crazy because when because he's also been from the inside, you know, he's also done a lot of time, 23 years, you know. So it's like when we talk about things like that, it feels so good to have somebody that walked in my shoe understand where I'm coming from, you know, especially being fresh out here. And he'll just laugh and he'll be like, well, with all the groups we've taken, what have you learned? And I'm like, can't control nobody but myself.
Yep. That's it. You're the only person you got control over. Yep. It's so true. And man, I didn't know that. So you're lucky, actually, in my opinion, because a lot of us, I talk to a lot of people that have been in prison, and a lot of us, we go back to our families, but our families know nothing about prison and what we dealt with and what we deal with out here. And so it's hard for them to understand us. And so there's a lot of clashing and bumping of heads, you know. So you actually have someone that you can speak with. That's good. A good support system is what we need out here, you know.
Yes, he is. God graced me with that because he is a blessing. And even more so for me, even though we walked in the same shoes darn near, we've also come to realize God is our higher power, and without him we can do nothing.
Real talk.
I'm blessed. And I'm even more grateful because the support system I had in there with our young Usos that were in there, you know, when I got home, they all started hitting me up on Facebook, Instagram, and it's like, dang, you know, and I do have a lot of them that thank me just for like, thank you for staying on my butt and helping me get out, you know? And I'm like, okay, it wasn't in vain.
No.
Everything's worth it. I have some that will, you know, they do communicate with me. Like, remember when you stocked me up because I was being called like Kiki? You know, I was like, I'm like, yeah, but now you know, right? She was like, and they tell me just thank you, you know, for not giving up.
They know it was that love, man, you have for them.
It's crazy because looking back now, our little family in there, a lot of them just wanted to be accepted for who they were. They just wanted that acceptance for who they were. And our parents didn't understand because they didn't come from that, you know? They were trying to figure out how to take care of us. Whereas we're trying to figure out how to mingle with Samoan culture and Palangi culture, you know? And it's sometimes it's crazy.
Yeah. Especially when you don't have that guidance and that communication.
No.
You know? Yeah. It's like we're aliens in this world. You know, it felt that way for a long time growing up and just going through what I went through. So I know exactly what you mean. So, you know, before closing, what type of advice, I always ask everyone this, you know, what type of advice would you give your younger self, your 24-year-old self in that situation? abusive relationships, just, you know, and dealing with anger issues and things like that. In a situation where you just feel it's out of control, what advice would you give to the female listeners out there who might be struggling and dealing with this situation today?
You're not alone. You're not alone. Even if you feel like you can't talk to somebody, there's always somebody to talk to, you know? And don't try to sugarcoat what you got going on. If it's hurting you, be honest about it. That was my issue. I try to dummy down a lot of the pain that I was going through. Don't dummy it down. Just be honest. And people, you will realize that people have a lot more in common with you than you think they do. And if you express what your pain is, you can probably help somebody else open up about theirs. And whatever the issue may be, don't ever be ashamed to get the help you need. And if you think that somebody don't understand, they do. They really do. So before it comes time for you to do something tragic and, crazy, find that one person that you know you can talk to. And if you don't have them, churches are always open. Mm-hmm. Talk to a pastor,
Yes. Yep.
Go, never be ashamed of your pain. And that's what I carried a lot of growing up, was shame. Mm. Shame because I didn't know how to do this. Shame because I didn't know how to do that. But I was told that, other people's vision of who I was allowed for me to carry that. Have your own vision for yourself. Because like we learned in group, if you know better, you do better.
Right. Educate yourself.
And always communicate. If you think you don't have a voice, learn how to talk. Hear yourself first, and then others will start hearing you. I dealt with a lot. Molestation issues, just stuff that's rooted from home.
This is stuff we need to talk about. Yeah.
And a lot of people say, oh, the Samoan communities, your family's so close, There's a lot of pain in that closeness.
Yep.
You lose your own identity of who you are, And that's all we're trying to do, is find out who we are. Don't be ashamed in it. If you don't want to do something that doesn't involve the culture, you don't have to. Mm-hmm. Be yourself. Don't be the image that your parents want you to be, Don't be the image that you think will make everybody else proud of you. Be yourself.
Yeah. I love it. That's real shit. Don't live up to other people's expectations, because you're never going to feel right about you.
Yeah.
Yep. Real talk. I really appreciate having you on here.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And I appreciate y'all for watching. And you know what it is. Stay the fuck out of trouble.